Be a bit nip and tuck there, won't it?
As I say, you know, France, we consider in the backroom boys that, you know, France, when you crunch the numbers, one of the spaces is theirs, and then it's a fight for the other one, and they're so hungry for it. But the other thing that you so regularly see with France is it's all or nothing.
Yes.
They'll either be on the podium or tomorrow could be a disaster.
They'll have fallen from grace, won't they? Very much so.
So 41.6 for Sarah Algerson-Ostholt there a moment ago. And we welcome forward María Pinedo Sendagorta, one of two sisters riding here for Spain on the Spanish team. Andrew Benny there in the centre of that shot, judging at B from New Zealand, and he's definitely going to the Olympics. He's part of the ground jury for the Olympic Games next year.
Yes, along with Marilyn Payne and Sandy Phillips.
Yes, I'm just trying to remember Sandy.
Sandy, who will be president.
María Pinedo Sendagorta rides Carriem von Colen Z by Cannabis Z. Sangescheide studbook appearance for this one. Santillana Paddocks owning the Spanish team horse. María Pinedo rode a horse called Windsor H at last year's World Equestrian Games and at the Le Moulin Europeans in 2011. This horse, Carriem von Colen, was 5th at Ravenna, clear in the CCI at Saumur, which is CCI 3-star in France, but that's been their only CCI level run this year. International 3-day event with the longer cross-country.
A little bit wobbly and unbalanced up that centre line into the halt, and just lacked a little bit of balance and self-carriage in that first shoulder in. Would like to see him a little more clearly positioned in that half pass to the left. And by that I mean he could just bring his quarters a little bit more to follow behind the shoulders. Always the forehand must be in a little bit in advance of the hindquarters in those half passes. Never want to see the quarters leading. And there he's dropping a little bit onto his left shoulder. Nicely forward. Really giving it his best shot. Just like to see him a little bit more through, more over a supple back. He doesn't look a very big horse, or is Maria very tall?
I think it's a little from column A, a little from column B.
Okay, fine. A little bit of crossing of that left hind leg there. Just to take a little bit more weight by stepping up and down more or less in the same spot. Relaxed here, stretching his head and neck, walking out to the other side of the arena. Meet up with Andrew Benny face to face. Still has that purpose about him, hasn't he?
And that's really pleasing. It's really pleasing to see in any walk, in any dressage,
yes,
but particularly in eventing dressage.
Yes. She had a little bit of a circle to start with before she actually managed to get him to listen to the pirouette.
Sometimes, and it's where you really need those eyes on the ground in the training as well, because it's difficult to know when you're aboard whether you do have the hindquarters following you around or whether they're actually sitting and giving you the pirouette. Yes, it can be
very difficult sometimes. Yes. Very hard indeed. Correct change, and nicely from the canter pace and back into the canter pace.
In one of our movements in the test is a specified transitions movement, but in every single movement where you're transitioning within a pace or preparing, all of that, although it's not specified on the test sheet, is very much part of what the judges are looking for. And it's so important to get right, because the quality of what you get after a transition is all down to the effort you put in and preparation you put in front of the transition.
I remember a very well-known rider of yesteryear who did the most flamboyant medium and extended trots, never quite understood why he didn't get 9s and 10s. And we were trying to explain to him, but at that stage, in the writing of the test, it did include the transitions. And the horse sort of winged around at sea and had almost started his extended trot before he got to the marker, because he enjoyed doing it so much. And of course, that was no transition shown. And so we could never, ever give the horse mega marks. But now in the 4-star tests, they do have separate marks in a lot of cases for the transitions. A little bit off the centre line there and trotted into the halt. But, you know, some decent work.
And 66, 67%, that kind of country.
Absolutely correct basic training. And to add to this international flavour, you would have just caught sight of Mark Lucy, the British vet, who's team vet for the Spanish team here at
British
Blair.
young riders and Spanish seniors.
Yes. So it really is a truly international sport, everybody helping everybody else.
We just have María Pinedo, Sendagorta, the third-team rider for Spain, Carriem van Colen, just finishing their test. We saw there 66, 67, so an average, say, of 6.5s coming in from the judges. If you're looking at this and you want a sort of an English language equivalent of 60%, well, 6 is satisfactory, 7 is fairly good, 8 is good, 9 very good, and 10 is not perfect, it's excellent.
Absolutely.
So when you look at an overall score, or if you look at a movement and your mind sort of suggests the words fairly good to you, then you're thinking 7. And then you can look at the board if you're live at an event and see, are the judges agreeing with me? Is what I think I'm seeing and calling fairly good what they see?
No, you're absolutely right, John. And also, naught is not performed. If we're getting, you mentioned somebody had 1s and 2s earlier on, and naught is not performed. But if they've actually strayed to the route map, you've really got to give them 1. If they've gone from the marker to the marker, and if they've gone in the right pace, which doesn't always happen on a really bad day, then you're probably going to give them 2. But naught is when they don't actually go on the route.
It's relatively difficult in our test, but you can imagine going right across one of those passage lines and missing out the piaffe.
Absolutely.
Because you can't get it, and getting a 0 for it in a Grand Prix test.
See, that left hind leg came across in front of the other hind leg, whereas it needs to pump up and down a little bit like a stirrup pump. But that lovely walk that we said, really purposeful and meaning to go there.
So María Pinedo, score is a 49.6, so another one under 50 penalties here. 29th position for María Pinedo, with Carriem van Colen said for the Spanish team. So 49.6, we'll see how that affects the team score now as well for Spain. Spain using the first 3 scores to hand, 165.4, and that would go into 9th position at the moment. But